Yeah. But yeah, I think what you said is true. Clipless pedals are just more efficient. They transfer the energy that you produce into the bike, into the pedals more effectively, efficiently.
Because you can pull up, can't you?
Cue our buzzer.
Yeah.
I definitely at one point in time believed that myth.
Welcome to Cycling Demystified, brought to you by Foundation Bike Fit and Frequency Cycle Works, the podcast where we help you take your cycling to the next level by sharing the knowledge from experienced bike fitters, mechanics, and the hidden players within the bike industry.
Welcome back to the podcast, dear listeners. Today we are going to be talking all about pedals. We're going to be comparing flat pedals versus clip-in pedals, discussing what the differences are, why you should be using one over the other, why one is better than the other, or if they are better at all, and busting some myths. Been getting quite a few questions lately about pedals, so we thought we'd talk about it. And also, I'm pretty excited this week because Matt has become younger and actually got some hair. Sorry, Matt. Matt's in the background there, but young Matt here is taking over the mic.
For a living.
Get back at your desk.
So say hi, Matt.
Hello.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. So young Matt has decided to join us on the podcast to offer another perspective. One maybe less jaded and
Less
old
jaded, less
on the
experienced.
podcast. We'll see what happens. So thanks for joining us, Matt. It's,
Cool.
getting on there. Yeah, old Matt is giving us the Italian signs.
Is shaking his fist at a cloud in the background.
Anyway, and also we've got Ev, of course.
Hello.
Ta-da! And Ev's bike, which is nestled in between us with some nice large mountain bike flats on.
It does go between clipless and flat.
Ah, does it?
It does, yeah.
All right.
But we will talk about that.
Yeah. Where should we start then? Should we talk about why we should be using clip-in pedals or why we should be using flat pedals? I don't know. What do you
Why don't we
guys?
start with your first statement?
Oh,
Where
should
you wrote, should we learn to ride in flats?
Well,
Or
yeah.
on flats?
Yeah. How did we all learn to ride? Did you
On flats?
start?
On flats.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
It would be
Touché.
it would be odd to put a young child in.
Better just get your cleats in the right
clipless
position, son. There we go.
Yeah. Well, that's the point, isn't it? Like, you know, if you get into clip-in pedals, then you have to be attaching cleats and other objects, and that requires another level of understanding.
More complicated.
You know, you can ride a flat bike in flats. Anyone can ride a bike on flats. So, you know, why is that not enough? Why do we need to clip ourselves in?
Well, here's the difference between then and now. Right? Okay. Assuming that we all in this room learned to ride bikes when we were small children, right? So we had a lot of experience riding bikes by the time we got to the point where we were like, oh, I might try those fancy new clipless pedals. Shall I tell people why they're called clipless?
Yeah,
Some
we
people
should
might
probably
not realise because they're pedals that you clip into. They're called clipless because the old style of bonding your foot into the pedal was what they called it toe clips and straps.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like you still see them on some commuter bikes. You shouldn't.
I have one on my rucksack.
Have you?
Used as a strap to secure it.
The straps are really useful for other stuff. Like
Yeah.
in bike shops, you always see the straps because they're really good, like little ratchet straps. But yeah, you used to put your toe in this kind of like, you know, piece of cage or plastic or metal cage that would wrap around your foot. And then there would be a strap and you would pull the strap, the ratchet, tight. So once you're in it,
Sounds leafy.
you're not coming out easy.
Yeah.
And yeah, just only for racing.
Yeah.
Or they were supposedly designed only for racing.
Yeah. I think old Tour de France pictures.
Old, yeah. And so you don't want to be using those now.
Yeah. So those are
Those were toe clips and straps, and that's why the modern ones, which are based on the ski bindings, which is where you clip in and you know
Rotate
you move your heel out to clip out, are called clipless. All right, we've done that.
Yeah. Confusing, but we're done.
GCN soundbite over. And where was I? What was I talking about?
So why do we want to?
So you know, if you're very experienced riding bikes and you've been riding flat pedals for a long time, you've just got experience riding a bike. So if you choose then to switch over to clipless and you're going to invest time into it, nowadays people are buying the road bikes and the gravel bikes and things, and everyone's telling them, because, well, this is cool, you should be riding these fancy shoes and these fancy pedals. And they're getting them like way before they've got enough experience riding bikes. So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. Why do people want clip-in pedals in the first place? Clipless pedals?
Because they're more efficient. I'm saying that and also asking the question.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Apart from people just telling their mates to go and get it.
Instagram. Go on Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the image of a bike rider, isn't it? Like, people with specific equipment makes you a bike rider. You look a bit of a... You look like a fraud if you're riding around on a road bike with flat pedals and trainers.
Classics.
Reebok Classics.
Big flats.
Yeah.
There is something else from a mechanical or engineering, whatever, design standpoint that I'll talk about in a minute.
But yeah, I think what you said is true. Clipless pedals are just more efficient. They transfer the energy that you produce into the bike, into the pedals more effectively, efficiently.
Because you can pull up, can't you?
Cue our buzzer.
Yeah.
I definitely at one point in time believed that myth.
Yeah. I think a lot of people did, because it was generally accepted that you with the old school cages and the straps, there would be a certain element of that, and also track as well, where they're like, even if they're using like clipless pedals, they'll put Velcro around or clips, like they'll really strap them. Some of them even gaffer tape their feet to the pedals.
Fixed gear riders, jumping red lights.
But that's a really good example. So the only time when you actually pull up on the pedals, or you want to be pulling up on the pedals, is from a standing start. Or maybe if you're getting out of the saddle on a hill, or you're just initiating a sprint where you need maximum amount of force from a slower speed into a higher speed, where you just need to put the maximal amount of force into the pedals at that point. So track sprinters starting out from the blocks, turning a huge gear, like every muscle fiber will be pulling against the pedal to power them forwards. And so, it's quite often that feet will come out of those pedals. So they have to strap them down.
Yeah. And it's less of a conscious thing as well. When you're doing that sort of thing, it's almost just, it's more of a natural thing that just happens. It's difficult to control it anyway. So.
Yeah, and it's such a slow speed that you can start to apply force downwards with one leg and pull with the other leg. Whereas, contrary to what our friends, the spin instructors, will tell you,
are they our friends?
Well, they're our neighbours here at the studio.
So we can't say.
We have a spin studio next door, and we often hear the instructions being shouted at. Spin is not cycling, in my opinion. It's a whole different sport in itself, but that's another conversation. But I think a lot of the myth gets perpetuated by, say, spin, or even some online training tools or other programs which people may use during their indoor bike sessions, which will require them to think about pulling up on the pedals as well as pushing down. And I think I was going to leave this till like kind of a bit later on, but let's just get straight into it and into busting this myth open. And I think we've done it before, but it always needs to be said because there's always more people coming into it. But absolutely, when we're pedaling a bike, we do not want to be consciously pulling up on the pedals. We should be concentrating on just the pushing down. And this is because, well, I think one is that, the majority of our large muscle groups, so our quads, our hamstrings, our glutes in the leg, they're all designed to push down. Literally, all the biggest muscle groups you have are designed to push down because you as a human being are designed to run and to walk and to push the ground away in order to propel yourself forward. The muscle that pulls upwards is a very small muscle on the front and side of your hip called the hip flexor. And so it doesn't really make sense to utilize a small muscle group over the three largest muscle groups that you've got in order to push down. So A, it's inefficient, and B, it's really, really hard to do, to pull up, because whilst one leg is pulling up, the other one's pushing down. So can you consciously think about pulling up and pushing down at the same time, and then as soon as one leg is finished pushing down and the other one's finished pulling up, then you've got to swap. let's say even a slow cyclist is doing 70 RPM, revolutions per minute. That's a lot of conscious effort to think about coordinating push up, push down, push up, push down on both sides at the same time. It's just not feasible to consciously think about it. And so why not just let your body do what it was built to do and just push down? So push down one leg. When that leg's finished, the other one is already initiating the push down. And your pedaling smoothness will come from the transition from one leg pushing down and the other one finishing, and being able to transition smoothly between those two.
And that has a lot to do with your saddle height being like on the ball.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Well, yeah. So, all of this requires you to be in a good body position that allows you to be able to pedal smoothly and transition between one pedal stroke and the other. And that's why, like, seat height often gets misinterpreted. Most people set their saddles too high because they intuitively understand that their body wants to push down on the pedals because that's what your body's designed to do. But when you push down, when you're walking and running, you fully extend your leg. But you just can't do that on the bike. If you fully extend the leg, then you can't pedal smoothly. You can't turn a circular motion through the pedal stroke. You end up pedaling more of a rectangle. And so on the bike, we want to prioritize that smooth, efficient transition across the whole of the pedal stroke. Pedaling in circles becomes a priority, and therefore we can't overextend our legs. And we always feel like we've got more to give in our leg extension. Because we do.
We do, yeah.
We can push, we can extend the leg, yeah. But, we're doing cycling, we're not running or walking, so, we have to train the body to move in a different kind of way. Oh, okay, so we busted that myth. So don't pull up on the pedals, guys. And if you're buying clip-in shoes to enable you to pull up because you are clipped in, then that is the wrong reason why you're buying those shoes. But that's not a reason why you shouldn't be
right
buying
solution, wrong reason.
Yeah. So, why do we want to buy clip-in pedals? And what was our experience of clip-in pedals?
They look cool. Well, that's the only reason I did it. That's literally the only reason that I did anything to do with cycling. Like, you see something, you go, oh, that guy looks cool, I want to be like him. So you emulate them. And what is it that we constantly say? Be influenced, but don't emulate, because everybody's different, right? But still, again, like, it's a new thing to somebody who's been riding BMXs and flat pedals forever, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is cool, this is a cool new thing, and this looks sleeker, and there is a good reason, and like I said, I'll touch on that later, about why you should be clipped in, particularly on a road bike. Because it's actually technically a requirement, but more about that later. But again, rules were made to be bent and sometimes broken. So even if a bike shop is selling you a bike that doesn't come with pedals, but you're like, oh, can you put some pedals on it? At the old bike shops where I used to work at, we would have a box under the desk with just the cheapest plastic, crappy flat pedals wrapped in cellophane. And you just get, because they're not, you could point them at the wall of pedals that you sell, but that's adding another 50, 70, 100 quid to the cost of what they're buying. So you just give them some crappy flat pedals so they can ride it away, and the shoes and everything. So you tend to end up with the pedals that come with the bike being cheap and rubbish, right? So that's your experience with flat pedals. Kids' bikes, usually cheap rubbish. So your experience with a lot of people's first experiences with bikes are they're a bit crap. You know what? The biggest difference I've made to my kid's bike, so she's 6 now, riding around on an old mountain bike. But like the biggest thing, like the best thing I've done is actually put some decent pedals on, decent flat pedals, and like she's so much more stable, so much more confident in what she's doing, and it's kind of crazy. It's the same argument that you have with everyone, with a lot of customers, which is, if you're kind of saying to somebody, well, maybe you're not ready for clips yet, but you should try upgrade your flat pedals to better flat pedals. But there's immediate pushback. There's like, oh yeah, I've got flat pedals, So no, they're not the same.
What constitutes a better flat pedal?
Usually, a wider platform or a bigger platform for your foot, better bearings, stiffer axles, because cheap pedals will have really soft axles, really crappy bearings. They probably won't spin very smoothly, so you go to step on them and they'll never be in the right place. You'll always have to like reposition them. When you do step on them, the axles would literally flex under your weight, right? So you might not notice it consciously, but it is happening. It's like crappy brakes on a bike. People don't realise that the actual brake caliper or the lever or something, when you're putting force through it, is actually just like, it's like made of jelly. They don't realise until they upgrade to something that is stiff that they're losing a load of power. And it's the same with the pedal. You're losing a load of power if the axle's flexible or the platform of the pedal is just crappy, cheap plastic. You upgrade to something like, decent mountain bike pedals, like DMRs or...
Even there's something like a metal pedal.
Or a metal pedal
will
even.
make a big difference compared with a plastic pedal, just because it provides that stiffness.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a nice segue into, well, what do we want out of a pedal in the first place? What we want is something that is stiff, something that provides a good platform for us to apply force against. Essentially, the flat pedal becomes the floor.
Yeah.
Like when you're on a bike, you're literally floating above the ground, so you need something to be able to both put your feet on to maintain stability so you don't fall over, but also you need to press against it to create that force to power the bike forward. So force and stability. If you're standing on a piece of jelly, you're not going to be able to get any force or stability through it. So yeah, pedals need to be stiff.
Yeah, I've got a good analogy for this actually.
Yeah.
If you want a good night's sleep, make sure you've got a solid platform underneath you. We've just moved flats, and the mattress on the bed is really old and crappy, and we're going to replace it. But for the meantime, we're basically just every time we go to bed, it's like you're on a waterbed. It's just like the whole thing's sort of like moving around. It's not a stable platform. You can't really relax. Whereas when you get a good mattress, you just sink into it, and it's just like, right, this is I'm lying down, and I'm not going to move unless I move. The ground's not moving underneath me.
And exactly the kind of analogy we want to kind of think about when we're thinking about shoes and pedals. And actually that's where the big difference, I think, when moving to clip-in pedals is not actually the pedal itself, it's the shoe.
The shoe is much stiffer.
Yeah.
I was going to say that the arguments that you were just sort of presenting for a better flat pedal, or sort of move towards maybe just trying a clipless pedal, in the sense that if you're after a sort of bigger, more stable platform, obviously there are other, convenience and all those sort of things.
Well, yeah, effectively the pedal platform becomes the entire sole of your shoe, right?
Yeah.
So like it's covering your whole foot is more likely than not, right, to be a stiffer sole, whether it's carbon, whether it's nylon, whatever it's made out of, cement, I don't know. But it's going to be stiffer, I mean, that's still, but again, and most clipless pedals are going to be higher quality because of marketing, the sport, everything. Everything's going to be more expensive anyway. It's likely that the axles are going to be pretty decent, stiffer. There is a difference between cheap clip-in pedals and expensive ones.
Really cheap clip-in
pedals. There are really, really cheap ones. But on the whole, let's say you're going for like Shimano or something, or Kyo or something like the known brands that have got a racing pedigree, and they've obviously professional bike racers are going to demand a certain level of quality, a certain level of stiffness and stuff like that. So they're just going to be good. So as long as the axle's stiff, then you'll benefit from your shoe being stiff. And now Wayne's going to tell us all about shoes.
About shoes? My favourite topic. Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, the concept is that shoes become your platform. And that's why carbon fibre is favourable in that sense, because manufacturers can tune the stiffness and stability of that shoe a little bit more with carbon fibre, why the cheaper shoes are made of nylon fibres. And as you get into the clipless system of having a pedal and a shoe that interface together, then it becomes even more important that that shoe fits really well, so that you get all the advantages of what you're looking for within that system. And the whole idea is to create more efficiency in force transfer, so that the energy that you're putting into your pedaling, into the shoe, into the pedal, all gets transferred more effectively into your pedal stroke. So with a squishy trainer, then you're losing that energy into the softness or foam of the trainer. You're not getting that stability, so your muscles are having to work a little bit harder to find that solid ground that you're pushing against. These are the real advantages of having a nice stiff cycling specific shoe and a cycling specific pedal, that you can find better stability and force production into your bike riding, but also at the same time more consistency as well. So if you're clipped in and your foot is held in the same place on each pedal stroke, then you're kind of repeating the same good movement patterns. This is an ideal world anyway.
Preferably,
So,
preferably good.
Yeah, good movement patterns and good force production, and therefore you become a more efficient cyclist. Well, I'm not going to dive too deep into shoes. If you want to know more about shoes, then I'll put a link in the show notes back to our episode, or multiple episodes about shoes and shoe fit, so on. But it is critical that we need to get our shoes fitting well, and your body will let you know about it if they don't fit well. So first of all, the shoe fit. Your shoe should feel snug. It should feel like a second skin against your foot, so that there's no loss of energy and there's excessive movement of your foot inside that shoe, which will lead to kind of loss of energy, but also hot spots and discomfort and pressure points within your foot. And just getting the shoe fit right seems more difficult than it actually sounds on paper, mostly because there's a lot of variety in human feet, but not that much variety in shoe shapes within the cycling world. So if you think about even within running trainers, like running trainers don't cover all kinds of foot shapes, and you kind of have to hunt around a little bit if you've got, say, like wider square shaped feet like mine. And the same is true of cycling shoes. We stock Lake shoes because they do offer all the different last shapes to cover all the different foot shapes.
Why do they call it a last?
I don't know. It's,
just basically means sole, or just the whole shape of the platform?
So the last is essentially the mold, not the mold that you shoe on, but the inner mold. So it's like
the shape of the foot that they've used to
the negative
shape
space inside the shoe. So traditionally you'd have a last, and then you pull the leather of the shoe around it to create the shape. Yeah. So I guess maybe last means
Does last mean foot in a different language?
Don't know.
Maybe probably turn out
that's
the case.
If anyone knows, let us know. But I suspect it's just like, it's the lasting shape. It's the last,
So it's actually from an Old English word, which means footprint.
Oh, well, there you go. Make yourself useful there, young man.
You're like our QI elf.
Google it.
Yeah. Exactly. What do you think the QI elves did?
There you go. So you were right.
Let me Google that for you.
I'm glad you did it. Thank you very much. Now get back to work.
So, but yeah, lasts are really important. I guess we can think about them a little bit like carbon fibre molds for bikes. They cost a lot to make.
But once you've got it.
Yeah, once you've got it, then you can make
out a bunch.
Yeah. So quite often a manufacturer will just have one last and then create a whole range of different models based on that one last. Yeah. Whereas good manufacturers will recognise that there's lots of different foot shapes and create multiple different lasts and then create multiple different models within that. So that's one thing to look out for, when you're shopping around for shoes, and realising what style of last there is within your manufacturer. So, for example, the Italian manufacturers like Physique or City have very narrow, traditional foot shapes, very pointed toes, narrow feet, narrow heels. The American brands tend to get a little bit wider. Specialized have quite a round, wide toe box, but quite a tight heel. Perlazumi, Bontrager, they all kind of follow that similar-ish kind of mold. And then there's people that make multiple different last shapes, like Lake. So yeah, it's worth trying on lots of different shoes if you're looking for shoes and getting the shape that fits your foot.
And maybe speaking to a bike fitter who probably knows more about cycling shoes than a high street store that sells them.
Yeah, bike fitters are usually pretty good people to go and talk to about shoes, because they're normally pretty obsessed about feet and shoes and that.
Seen a lot of feet.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of feet.
Obsessed with feet.
Yeah, they tell a lot of feet. So yeah, it's worth getting it right. So going back to shoe fit, the other thing that you need to get right with cycling shoes, which makes it doubly difficult, is as well as the fit of the shoe being right, you also need to be able to get the cleat positioning right on your foot. So not all shoe manufacturers drill the holes where you mount the cleats in the same place. Some will offer more adjustment. Manufacturers like Shimano will have like a big slider adjustment on the sole of the foot, which allows you to move the cleat forward and back even more than within the adjustment offered in the cleat itself. This assumes that you also need to figure out, where your cleat should be on the shoe, and this is where going to bike fitters becomes even more useful, because they can tell you what shoe is going to fit, but also where your cleat should be, and therefore you're going to get a much better result overall. Some well-trained bike shops will be able to do that too, but you just need to be aware of those options and what you need.
It's a little bit gate-kept, but for a good reason. Because you can do it yourself. You can do it yourself, but there are going to be a lot of people that are they're going to get a bit confused. And it's nice for somebody with a bit of experience to be able to instruct you on that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, as always with anything bike related, you can go buy some shoes, try them out, order them online, see what works, test it out yourself, and figure it out yourself just through trial and error. Depends what kind of person you are. Do you want to make all the mistakes and figure it out, or do you want to just go to the solution straight away? Exactly. So that's one way of looking at it.
Can tell which one you prefer based on that, based on the way you described it.
Well, of course, it's just only because I've made all the mistakes.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, that's the idea. The difference between somebody qualified, well, not necessarily qualified, experienced, and somebody who's inexperienced is usually the experienced person has made all the mistakes.
Yeah.
And they've realised, okay, right, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. This works. This is the best way to do it.
I don't mind people exploring and testing stuff out.
This is where you and I differ, you see. I don't want people tinkering with their bikes before they bring them to me.
Yeah.
Just don't make your problems my problems.
Just as long as they eventually, turn off on my doorstep asking the right questions, and then I can tell them, that. Well, actually, I don't mind that as long as they learn.
Yeah.
It's just
if you have time to educate and inform, it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah, just the repeat.
Sometimes you don't always have. Yeah, sometimes you don't always have time for certain people.
Anyway,
all right, let's go back to pedals. So we talked about shoes.
Yeah,
and we sort of talked about some of the advantages of clipless pedals over flat pedals.
Yeah.
What about the other way around?
The other way around. So why do people still ride flat pedals? And where do we see flat pedals predominantly? It's on
commuter bikes.
Commuter bikes. Yeah.
Some mountain bikes.
Yeah.
It's a combination. People ride a combination on mountain. Some people ride clipped in. There's kind of a bit of a hybrid version of a clip-in pedal which has a platform around it. Well, there's the commuter ones, which is a bit different, but then there's the SPD, the Shimano SPDs with
one side, one side flat, one side.
Well, there's those ones, but then there's these ones which are double-sided still, but they also have a slight extra platform. So you got more ability to feel your way around, I guess. On the whole, an off-road shoe is most likely not going to be as stiff as, say, a road shoe, right? Because the idea is that you're not always going to be on the bike.
Yeah.
There's going to be times where you're going to want to get off the bike and still want to walk around. Yeah. So you've got those options, those types of pedals.
Yeah, I'd say like the majority of my mountain bike friends probably ride flat pedals. Just for clarity, a mountain bike flat pedal is a large platform pedal, as you were describing earlier, to give you good surface area where you can apply force and spread the load over. But they also have usually pins that stick upwards out of them, which will essentially interface with your shoe to give you grip so that your foot, it won't slip off the pedal as easily. Mountain bike pedals usually demand a specific mountain bike shoe, which although it doesn't have the clip-in mechanism, the sole of the shoe is usually designed so that it's grippy and tacky enough and will interface with the pins on the pedal to give you a really solid kind of locked in feeling, particularly laterally and forward and back. So your foot doesn't really slide around on the pedal. However, you can still move your foot around quite easily, or much more easily than with a clipped in system. But you can also place your foot in different areas on the pedal. So I think that's why mountain bikers tend to prefer it, so that if you're riding over varied terrain and you're having to negotiate quite a lot of movement on the bike, you do have the option of moving your foot around if you need to.
I think some of it has to do with the fact that if you're wearing like a mountain bike shoe, like a 510 or something similar, that's not too stiff. I'm a bad example. I've got some specialized shoes that are flat shoes that are a bit too stiff. But it's sometimes preferable to have a solid, stable platform on the pedal, but your shoe, you can still feel the movement through the sole of the shoe. So when you're off road, that's kind of nice, because it's like the difference between trail shoes and running. Like you don't want it to be too stiff. You want to be able to feel the ground under you.
So should I have a question? If someone they're not ready to go into clip-ins, and then they want to stick with their flat shoes, and so for example, if someone's a runner and they're getting into cycling, what shoes would you recommend them to wear for their...
Not your running shoes.
Well, this is the thing, because I see a lot of people who will think, oh, I have these extra cushy pillow-like running shoes.
I've got these Alpha Flies. They were only 300 quid. I think I'll ride some mountain bike pedals with these.
Or the shoes they maybe use for their longer runs that are super squishy and super comfy. Does that translate to comfort on the
I think there's pedals? I think maybe there's a level of, well, actually, wait for more qualified to speak on this than I am.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was going to say.
So for the rider who is transitioning from running shoes into cycling, what would our advice be then? Be not to use your running shoes because they're full of foam and squidgy. And
not only that though, if you have flat like mountain bike pedals or something like that initially, those spikes, the pins will shred the soles. They'll shred those soft, supple
fresh
Nike Alpha Flies.
So I think even if you're whatever pedal system you end up using, it's actually really advantageous to get some cycling specific shoes. Even the flat mountain bike shoes will have a certain degree or more stiffness in them than say a regular trainer, which means you can still walk around in them, but they have more stiffness to give you better control on the bike. One way you could go about it if you're transitioning from running shoes is actually to use a more minimalist running shoe and a stiff pedal with a wide platform to cover as much of your foot as possible. Certainly I've found riding around on my town bike with big mountain bike flats with like a minimal kind of barefoot shoe actually really comfortable and really effective, mainly because a bit like running spikes, which are usually, or they used to be, very minimal, so that you could really feel the ground and feel where your foot was contacting and how it was moving. In the same way as mountain bike shoes are there to give you a little bit more feel or contact with the actual bike and the ground and the terrain and how your foot's moving in order to move your body around the bike so that you can control it better. Feel becomes really important.
It's way less important with, say, road riding.
Oh yeah.
Because you just want efficiency, maximum power output, power transfer. Whereas with mountain bikes, a lot of the time you're not necessarily putting any power, and you're just balancing. And you want to feel what's going on under you.
And how to react to the terrain. You know, if you're squidging into a berm, if you're hitting a soft bit of loam or something like that, you want to feel how the bike is reacting, and your feet are like the main contact or a main contact area where you can really feel, especially what the back wheel is doing. So feel does become really important. So discipline specific footwear is important. Obviously, when you get into something in between like cross-country mountain biking where maybe you're racing and you need that power transfer going up climbs and so on, then you'll probably find that most of them wear clip-in and very stiff carbon fibre shoes. For the commuter though, a flat pedal seems to make sense, because then you can get off the bike and walk around.
And you're constantly stopping and starting, and if you're not super confident with clipping and clipping out, falling over at the lights. When you do stop at the lights.
And you're not competing to win the commute, are you?
Strava says
who does that?
And so it really depends on what do you need out of your bike. What does it need to do?
Well, this is the other thing. If you're commuting, some people commute on their road bikes or their gravel bikes or their whatever, their drop bar bikes. Most of these bikes are designed with a specific type of pedal system in mind, and that is clipless pedals. They'll even say, I mean, a lot of the crank sets, and even maybe instruction manuals for the bikes will actually tell you, if you do read the small print, you should not use flat pedals with this bike. And there's a reason for that. It's because the bottom brackets tend to be lower, particularly on road bikes. So they're not designed for a pedal that's got a very wide platform. They're designed for something with a very low stack and small, compact kind of thing. Because it's much, if you put big flat pedals on a road race bike, you lean over in the corner, you'll find out how quickly.
Would you be doing that?
You should not be doing that on your commute.
If you had flat pedals on your bike,
what would you be clipping?
Smashing it through pedaling through a corner.
Well, you'd be surprised. Seen people on line bikes do it, so.
Yeah, fair point.
But is there a case for using flat pedals on a road bike?
Maybe injury or just getting used to a new bike, like not having ridden maybe a drop bar bike ever before in your life. And maybe, not only is that position way different from, maybe your hybrid or your flat bar mountain bike or a rental bike that you've been using, or a Pashley or whatever, all of a sudden you're in this really fairly aggressive position. And then on top of all of that learning curve, learning to ride clipped in and then remember to clip out when you stop at the lights. Yeah. Maybe initially at least, it's not a bad idea to try.
Yeah, because actually in terms of there's definitely been some studies out there that have studied the amount of power that's generated and efficiency through the shoes themselves. And actually there's not that much difference between, say, a clipped-in shoe and, say, a mountain bike, still with a stiff sole, but with a non-clipped-in mountain bike shoe. So power is not the name of the game, but I think it's more about efficiency. So the flat pedal will still allow you to ride the road bike absolutely with as much speed as your compatriots would be. They'll just give you the option of moving your foot around and giving you that confidence that you don't have to be thinking about unclipping your foot this way and that. And certainly we've had quite a few riders come through the studio who have gone through that kind of way, and that they feel much safer going with flat pedals, so on. That's not really compromising their ride. So yeah, some of it is, as Ed, you were saying, fashion. So,
aero.
And aero, yeah. If you want ultimate performance, then yeah, I think the clip-in options will give you that ultimate performance.
Those shoes are going to be the stiffest, because that's how they're made, right? The road shoes are probably going to be the stiffest and most efficient platform.
But I think that it also gives you two other things. So one is, as we've said before, just consistency. So when you're clipped in, you're just pushing down in the same position each time, and so there's less variance, and therefore you can control the amount of effort that's going in each time. You can train your body into that same position. But also comfort. Actually, the stiffer your shoe, the more consistent your platform where your foot goes on it. And over long distances, just like the waterbed you were talking about earlier, if you've got an inconsistent surface that you're trying to control, then you have to put in a lot more effort to control that surface, or to be able to put force on top of it. So if you've got something squidgy and soft which absorbs your energy, then yeah, that's going to take a lot more effort, and so you don't have the endurance, or you're losing that energy throughout your ride, and eventually you lose comfort. Actually, if you're doing a lot of long distance riding, then maybe a stiffer platform is going to be more comfortable.
Hey, if you want to test that theory, go run on some sand.
Yeah.
Or walk through a Glastonbury festival in some wellies.
Oh, I've done that.
Never done that before.
Oh, I've done that. I've done that in Converse.
There you go.
Oh yeah, trench foot. That was fun.
Oh dear. So where does this leave us with our shoes and clip-in pedals? Are we saying people should be using clip-in pedals or not clip-in pedals?
I think it's a choice. I think it's always a choice. And there are lots of unwritten or written rules around cycling. Like you're riding a road bike, you should be riding road shoes clipped in. You should never ride like SPDs, like mountain bike cleats.
Yeah.
On a road bike, that'd be a terrible idea. Who would do that? Who would do that, Matt? There are no rules. Like there is going to be. You could be riding your road bike or your gravel bike or whatever, through town to work. SPDs are a great compromise between full road pedals and flat shoes, because you've got a shoe that you can get off and walk.
Do you think there's any difference between a mountain bike SPD clip-in pedal and a road bike SPD
Yeah,
SL?
huge difference. Enormous. Massive. No, I don't know. I mean, there is definitely a difference, but like I said, road shoes tend to be the stiffer, more racing and efficiency focused last, right? I guess, or just platform or whatever. Whereas a lot of SPD mountain bike clipped shoes, they'll have a softer sole for the very reason that when you get off the bike, it'll be very fatiguing to walk in a really stiff sole, right? And also for things like cyclocross, you sort of almost a requirement to get off the bike. Although now they are making sort of gravel specific SPD shoes, which are really stiff. They're basically road shoes, but with 2-bolt system.
But I'm glad you kind of brought this up. You've been talking about the shoe, and I think that's the important thing. The actual pedal mechanism itself, I don't think actually makes that much difference to kind of how the pedal stroke feels or the efficiency of that pedal stroke. It's just another mechanism to kind of hold your foot against the pedal itself. What really makes a difference is the shoe and the stiffness and the shape and the comfort of that, and to kind of how that translates into efficiency or comfort and so on.
Yeah.
During your ride. The road pedals appear to be a little bit larger in
bigger platform.
Bigger platform. So the theory is that it's supposed to spread the load out. There's more contact, and therefore you can apply a bit more pressure to them. But mountain bikers apply huge amounts of power into
and higher torque.
And at higher torque,
Yeah, I don't think there's a huge difference there. I mean, between the differences become smaller and smaller the higher end you go, right?
Yeah.
Until you go off this cliff. If you go higher end in the kind of like the good stuff, the really good stuff, and then you fall off a cliff with stuff getting insanely costly because it's lighter, and that stuff gets that's all like jelly. It goes back to being like jelly again. They just want to make it as light as possible. But if you're sensible and you go into like the kind of, we're talking about the Shimano, like Dura Ace or Ultegra kind of level stuff, or the XT sort of stuff. And those are all really solid platforms, really stiff axles, and really good bearings, and really good systems generally, like low maintenance. Yeah.
So I would say to people, don't get too hung up on the actual pedal system itself, and maybe just if you're thinking about it, go get some, try it out, see what happens.
How do you feel about road shoes, i.e. shoes that don't have any tread on them at all, completely flat carbon fibre bottom, or outsole, which also have the option to run SPD cleats on them?
Yeah. Ooh.
Which I have seen.
I did that. My first time, I
feel like a lot of people first time, because it's a cheaper option.
Did not realise.
Yeah.
Stupidly, did not realise.
Until you slipped over on the wet concrete.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think my first pair of clip-in pedals and shoes were a pair of SPDs and some Nike road shoes. That's how old I am.
Wow.
And Nike shoes.
Back in the Armstrong days.
Yeah, Nike.
Armstrong. Not even Cavendish, mate.
Nike Pogios.
Wow. But now don't the new ones, like is it Form or somebody else who does like you can put a 2-bolt cleat on a road shoe with an adapter, but it actually has like a little bit of rubber either side, so basically it creates a little
that's a nice option. So the
issue
with the issue with what we've been talking about is that the mountain bike SPD cleat, or mountain bike style cleat that sticks out, is metal and is very small in size, and it doesn't have any support for you when you're trying to walk around off the bike. The road bike style cleats have walkable tabs built into them, so they are reasonable in terms of clip-clopping your way to the cafe without completely falling
they
over.
they are good for walking from your bike outside into the counter, getting coffee, and then slowly gingerly walking your coffee back outside and sitting at a table. That's about as far as you'd want to walk it.
So, but in order to make the mountain bike cleat a little bit more accessible, then Shimano do produce these pontoons. So these adapter plates which you can put onto the base of that road shoe and then fit a mountain bike cleat onto it, and the pontoons essentially create some grip for you to kind of walk around on, so you're not just walking on the cleat itself. So yeah, that is an option. As long as the shoe is stiff and it allows you to transfer force from the shoe into the pedal, there's no reason why you can't use that combination of pedal and shoe. I guess it's just not as common.
Yeah, I think at that point you would maybe just consider just using a road cleat.
Yeah. Why are road cleats made of plastic and a mountain bike cleats made of metal?
Because road is all about being as light as possible.
For climbing.
Climbing, yeah.
But, you know, if I want my cleats to actually last more than like 10 walks to the cafe.
Interesting that you bring this up. Because there are some good reasons for certain things to wear quicker, right? For example, a cleat, right? You want, because there are people running Shimano SPD 2-bolt cleats on their shoes from an era where you were young, right? Still today, not realizing that their knee pain or something may be caused by the fact that their cleat is so well worn. I say the same thing about bar tape. I'm like, black bar tape is great because it doesn't show dirt, but the one thing it also doesn't show is dirt, which means you forget, oh, this is a cesspit that I'm holding on to every day when I go to work. You should change it because it's like you're getting diseases from this stuff. So by the same token, some things, it's a good visual indicator. Something wearing physically quite quickly for you to realise that there's a certain shelf life in something. You should probably change it periodically to make sure that your position is, the same, like your platform or your.
I enjoy your optimism, Ev. Like, judging by the cleats we see in here. Yeah. So check your cleats, people. If you've worn out all the tabs, walkable tabs on it, it's time to change. If you're getting knee pain, check your cleats. If you're getting bum pain, check your cleats.
Check your saddle. Check your shorts.
Checks everything. Everything wears out. Saddle, bar tape. Yeah. So
your own hip bone might be wearing away.
Okay. And I think finally, we still haven't talked about flat pedals and any other advantages they may offer maybe a road cyclist over and above a clip-in pedal. And maybe this is something that we haven't talked about before. Maybe we have talked about it before, but there may be a reason why an experienced road cyclist who has been using clip-in pedals may go back to a flat pedal system. And that is because we actually want to retrain our way of moving on the bike and to retrain that push mechanism, prioritizing the push in our pedal stroke. Because yes, when we are clipped in, we do actually have the ability to pull upwards because we are completely attached to the pedals with our shoes. And so we can get into cycles where we end up pulling a little bit more through our pedal stroke than just prioritizing the push down. And also we can, because with clip-in pedals, we're obviously attached to the pedals, then that pedal system helps us through the pedal stroke. It will continue to pull our foot through the pedal stroke in the same place all the way around. Whereas if you ride a flat pedal with a flat pair of shoes and you're not clipped in, as soon as you stop pushing down or applying force onto the pedal and you let go, then your foot kind of de-weights a little bit, and so it's free to kind of move around. And if you mistime that a little bit, then it can feel like your foot's coming off the pedal. Full efficiency of pedal stroke, you want to be initiating the downward push of your pedal stroke from right at the top of the pedal stroke or just behind the top of the pedal stroke. So you're pushing from, say, like 12 o'clock all the way around the pedal stroke, all the way down through and past 6 o'clock. So right at the bottom, dead center of the pedal stroke, and pulling backwards a little bit. So
but not pulling
push
up. You're kind of scraping. Right?
Yeah, almost like scraping the bottom of the pedal stroke. So you're getting maximal force production from as much of that pedal stroke as you can. Or you can't, like if you've got like non-clip-in pedals, you can't really pull upwards.
Do you find that people tend to pull when their saddle is too high? Because they're losing the ability to push through at the bottom of the pedal stroke, because basically they're just toe down and they can't.
Yeah.
They've not got platform left. So all of a sudden they're losing power at the bottom, and then the only alternative is to kind of like use your other leg,
Yeah.
where it's still coming round the back. Yeah.
If you want to try and keep that kind of pedal circle.
So galloping.
Yeah. So actually, using flat pedals can be a really good test to see.
A good teacher.
It will be very obvious if your saddle's too high.
Yeah.
With flat pedals, you literally just can't
Your feet
reach the
will fly
bottom.
off, yeah.
Like your feet will fly off. So yeah, if you've been riding clip-in pedals, or clipless pedals for a long time, and you want to actually improve your pedaling efficiency, it might be advantageous to go back to flat pedals for a while. Maybe if you ride a commute bike or something like that, maybe go ride some flat pedals. Or if you've got a gravel bike, ride some flat pedals for a bit.
And or maybe just do it on your turbo.
Yeah, on the turbo.
To save your embarrassment of riding with your roadie friends in flat pedals, and they'll all be questioning you, being like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
Well, one of the reasons why mountain bikers have much better skills is because you have to get good at riding flat pedals through varied terrain, and so your ability to really control where your feet are and where you put force into the pedals is a necessity, rather than if you're just clipped in, then you can kind of get away with it. So particularly if you're doing if you're getting any kind of air on your mountain bike, like for those who have done it in kind of flat pedals, like if you get it wrong and you don't put enough force into the pedals themselves, your feet will fly off straight away, and you'll suddenly become disconnected with your bike unerringly through the air, which is not a great feeling. So yeah, it really teaches you to get your weight balance kind of right on the bike and how to control your bike. So if you want to do some jumps and you're roadie, yeah, definitely go back to flat pedals. But also, yeah, if you want a more efficient pedal stroke, and maybe this is a good time of the year to do it. We're going into autumn, winter now. Try to teach your body something different. Challenge it in a different kind of way. It's wet, it's sticky out there. Challenge yourself. Get some flat pedals. Stick them on your commute bike. See what happens. Don't get lazy. What do you reckon?
You going to try it, Matt?
I may try it. I mean, I have flat pedals on my janky old Specialized commuter bike that I lock up wherever I want. Yeah. And on a day like today, maybe not such a great idea in case your feet come flying off. Yeah. It's pouring down with rain. Yeah. But
yeah, see what happens. What about fixed gear bikes?
We don't talk about that.
Get the duct tape out.
They're for the track.
Just not cool anymore.
It was never cool, to be honest.
All right. Should we knock it on the head then? Yeah, I think we've given people enough to talk about. So, yeah, if you're curious, give yourself a little go on flat pedals with some pins to get your pedal stroke looking good. If you are just venturing into clip-in pedals, spend some money on shoes, because that's the really important part about pedals, and don't get too hung up on the pedal system that you're using.
But don't just go and buy the most expensive shoes for the sake of it.
Yeah, get the ones that fit.
Get some advice from somebody who knows maybe a bike or two.
All right, see you on the next one, guys. Ta-ra. If you made it to the end of this episode, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, do leave us a rating or review, as this really helps other riders find our podcast too, and motivates us to keep making more episodes. Thanks for your support, and catch you on the next one.
Suffering from numb hands, tingling toes, and any other persistent discomforts when you ride? These are all signs that your bike fit could be improved. If you're bike fit curious, get in touch with Way or Matt by emailing info@foundation.fit or finding them on Instagram @FDN_bikefit. Finally, for all your bike servicing needs, custom dream bike or hand-built wheels, go to www.frequencycycleworks.com or find me on Instagram @frequencycycleworks. Until next time, keep on spinning.